Rabbi Tzai, Shalom Aleichem. This is Yehud 11. And the program is 11 at 11, the most exciting, in your face, politically incorrect, hashkafically superior, with the values of Gedolei Torah of yesteryear. This is the radio program that is the spiritual reason that Marconi invented the radio. And yes, with 98% of my brain tied behind the collective backs of Rush Limbaugh, President Trump, and all the Askonim, including the tweeting Mrs. Kalman Yeager, who tweets on the Yom HaAtzmaut greetings to the homosexual community, all of this and much more. And now I think we are joined by Rabbi Nosson Leiter.
Yes, I'm sorry.
No problem. Rabbi Leiter, welcome, and you timed it perfectly. Let's cut right to the chase. I'd like to discuss 2 or 3 issues with you today, but very, very briefly each one. First of all, there is an Equality Act, something like that, going through Congress, which I understand has almost 250 co-sponsors now, which would push the Mishkav Zacha agenda into the schools and into all kinds of government situations.
It would be public accommodations specifically, businesses, etc.
Okay, can you elaborate on that?
Basically, the law says that the Civil Rights Act, which prohibits discrimination on the basis of color, is not be applied in a most unequal and insulting way to practitioners of LGBT, and this obviously is insane and it's immoral. It's against the Torah, but it's perhaps the first time that we have such a bill on the national level. It's one of the worst, if not, perhaps the worst bill of this nature we have on the national level. And even if it's not going to pass in the Senate, which we hope it would not at this point, but still we have to fight it. People have to call their legislators in the Congress, the representatives have to be called as soon as possible to ensure that they know that we're against this type of bill and anything like it. This bill would basically put the federal government in a place of enforcing so-called non-discrimination against these flagrant Torah practitioners in all sorts of contexts, including public accommodations. And we're talking about bathrooms in particular being singled out, that transgender people, meaning people that claim to be the opposite gender from their genuine, the real gender, would have to the opposite gender bathroom, and that would obviously be tremendously traumatic and invasive and even dangerous. And this is something that does need elaboration, but I will say that one thing that we should point out to the tzibur, that when they call, if their representative is a leftist, which is a problem with which we're afflicted here in New York a lot, they should put them on defensive and say that how can you claim to be against child molestation and promote a bill which enables child molestation on the national level? If child molestation is the one thing that these leftists genuflect to, they pretend to care about in terms of moral issues, just as it's one of the few that we can use against them to show their inherent inconsistency. So put them on defense, and people say to be polite. They should see that we're very firm about this and care more about this than about monetary matters, and put the Jewish organizations that are supposedly representing us on defense as well, if at all possible, to ask them what they're going to fight this, and are they fighting this like they fight for federal funding, not that or state funding.
Okay, I thank you very much for this. I want to just ask you, would you be aware, as the Hamodia or Yated Neman, I know the Jewish press had an article about this, and I understand they might have more next week, but does the Yated or Hamodia write anything about this at all?
The Hamodia, I don't know. The Yated, I generally would not accuse of that. But, I have been surprised in the past. But generally speaking, these papers need to be pressured. Although the media sometimes will do the right thing when they're properly communicated with on occasion, they will actually take a stand, not necessarily as clearly as they should, but I think they would benefit from public pressure to do so.
Okay, when you speak about public accommodations, wouldn't this also possibly include locker room situations that could affect children or teenagers, etc.?
Yeah, well, bathrooms are specifically included, and that generally would include showers and locker rooms as well. That is sort of part of the course of the transgender agenda as it's been going through the country.
And the problem that people don't seem to understand is that as they ensconce these things into civil rights, so when civil rights comes up against religious freedoms and religious rights, we don't necessarily know, especially with the direction the country is taking as a whole, we don't know that religious rights are going to be successful. In other words, it might be subsumed, and it might be considered ancillary or secondary. Now, I'm not a great constitutional scholar, but I'll tell you one thing, that many, many years ago, there was a decision by the federal government when certain Christian groups held that there shouldn't be interracial marriages, they lost their tax dollars. That was just the number one. So I want to say a public prayer now, Yehi Ratzon Lefanecha, with all seriousness, Hashem Elokeinu v'Elokei Aviseinu, that we should once and for all lose all government funding for yeshivas. And once we lose it, einmal fa'alamal, so we'll stop being such craven, genuflecting, mechale Hashem, kiss-ups. And that's it. It should be decided once and for all. And then at least we should be free to speak our conscience. We should be free to do what we have to do, because this contingency on the almighty buck, as if the only way we can buck the trend and remain Yidden in this great democracy of ours, in the golden Medina, where we have it so much better than we ever had it in history. The only way we can do it is if we genuflect and kiss up to all the politicians, including Kalish from Illinois, the Aguda lobbyist, who brazenly supports Mishkav Zacha and puts it into the public schools from K through 12, and he's now doing stuff with abortion. So, v'noima omein. Okay, let's move on to the next subject. The next subject is, there's another 16-and-a-half-year-old girl from Meir Sharon. And as the ditty goes that we used to sing in nursery school, and nobody can deny that she's absolutely an ultra Haredi, probably happens to be from a family that happens to be fighting against Gias Bunnis, against drafting women. So now I understand that they demanded that she at 16-and-a-half or so present herself on Lag Ba'omer Dafka. They chose Lag Ba'omer, how interesting, that she has to present herself with regard to the draft. And I understand she and her parents are saying they're not going to do it. So what's the story here?
Yeah, so basically, this is a girl that actually was previously summoned for a Tzad Rishon to appear for induction and refused. And she did everything proper in terms of going through the normal procedure that girls in that situation go through. The girls all, submitted their their documentation proving that they are, or showing that they are religious girls. And in her case, there's nothing about her that would give the government any pretext to even question her religiosity. And their actions here seem to be openly, patently illegal, even according to their own laws. And the girl and her mother made it very clear that she is not going to the army under any circumstances. She will not appear. She will not negotiate with them and play their games. And they will have to come after her if they want to get her. And they may do that. And if they do that in the middle of Meishar, where she lives, that will probably start a major conflagration there, Bezos Hashem. And who knows what the results will be. Hopefully no good people will be hurt. But she and her family are willing to be mostly Nefesh, and they understand that by doing so, they will help advance the cause of alerting the world to Gias Bonus and, in general, the anti-religious blitzkrieg that is occurring in the area of Gias Bonus as well as far beyond it.
Okay, I want to cut this short. I might speak about it a little later in the program myself, but I want to make a little pun. Lamaisa, this girl may just become the first Haredi prime minister of Israel. Why do I say that? Because it's famous that there were certain politicians in America who said if selected, I will not come, and if drafted, I will not serve. So since she's saying these things, and she's doing this so effectively, she might become a great politician, and maybe she'll be the Prime Minister of Israel. That's just a pun. It's just a joke, but this is a bitter gelächter. And now I want to say something. You know, there are stories we hear about Gedolei Yisrael, that when you woke them up in the middle of sleeping, or when they were in the middle of the hospital, like with Chaim Shmulevitz, when he was 3/4 out of it, and somebody would say something to him, groggily he would say, Zoga Svara, and he was ready to fight and learning, etc. Because this occupied their minds. I want to say something. It might sound tremendously self-serving, and it might sound balgaividik. At this point in my life, I really don't care. I'm telling you that there are different times that I should wake up and I'm dreaming about scenarios with Agmas Nefesh about what's going on. Okay, because that's what's in your heart, and that's what comes out even when a person is sleeping. And I want to tell you something. I could be woken up in the middle of the night, and I could say more seicheldike things in making hashkafic connections, which people who are 100 times bigger than me in Yerushalayim and in Torah and in Avodah and in Chesed, that they won't be mechaven to. And I'm saying that as an introduction to what I'm about to say. And why is that? It's very, very simple. We operate under affirmative action. I'm the low monkey who Gedolei Yisrael 40 years ago chose to do this stuff. And because of that, I have to have the neshek, the armaments, the ammunition. If you would give me an IQ test, you would see that I'm mediocre at best. And yet I can defeat in arguments people who are much brighter than me. It's only because I'm a Maisa Kuf Ba'alma. I said a monkey because I am a Maisa Kuf Ba'alma of Gedolei Yisrael, who are acting as a conduit to give me my job from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Levim, Lashim, Lazimram, Shomrim, Resechu, Brischi, and Soru. So therefore, I want to say this to the people who are listening now in America. Hear me out and remember that I said this. Like so many other things that I've said in the last 40 years that have come to fruition. Hear me out, Rabbi Say, and especially the ladies preparing the challahs and preparing the Shabbos in the kitchens. There are now literally thousands of listeners to this radio program. People are stopping me in the street and saying they heard, they're giving the constructive or unconstructive criticism. People are passing me by in the streets and running out of cars to shake my hand or to take pictures as they go by. And people are cursing me, Baruch Hashem. If they wouldn't be cursing me, I would have to retire. The point is, Rabbi Say, with these new acts like the Equality Act and the Equal Rights Amendment, which has been languishing for 4 decades, and now they're re-invoking it, and they're a state or two short of having the necessary amount of states, and God forbid they might pass the Equal Rights Amendment. The Equal Rights Amendment will make an automatic that the women will be considered just as obligated as men in case there's a draft. Mark my words. Hashem is doing us a chesed that he's allowing us to fight in Eretz Yisrael for the kedusha of our daughters, our cousins there. And if we don't do it, I will kimat sign a promise to you that within a shorter time than you think, the mamzerim, and I say it, Dafka, the mamzerim here will institute women in the army. Mark my words, it will happen here. So you're being given an opportunity to do something on the foreign shores of Israel for our brethren, our sisters, you understand? And to prevent the machla from coming here. Enough said. Rabbi Leiter, thank you very much for joining with us, and we look forward to speaking to you in the near future. All the best.
Thank you so much, Colton.
Oh, what was it, Rabbi Leiter?
Yes.
No, there was one other issue I want to discuss very, very, very briefly. I'm sorry. We're over time, but I want to mamish just a few sentences. There was a big anti-vaccine thing that got into the news. I'm going to discuss later on Rabbi Handler's comments that made the news, but I want to discuss one particular angle with you that is not usually discussed, and that's about George Washington, our founding father. So let me introduce this with a little niggin. Our country 'tis of the sweet land of liberty, to thee I sing. Land of the Pilgrim's Pride. I have to do that in order to hold the Olam's attention. And because we're going to be talking about the Kabbalah that we have from the father of our country, who wrote a beautiful letter about religious freedom to the Torah synagogue, I'm talking about none other than George Washington. And George Washington, in his farewell address, said, beware of foreign entangling alliances. And Chochma Bagoyim Taimin, we have to understand that if George Washington, the Ein the Yehudi, said this, Kal V'chomer, the Yidden have to understand, and I'll bring it from the Gemara, that the Yakira Yushalayim, they would not sit down to a Suda with Charedim if they didn't know exactly Mizeh, Eval Mazeh. And today, of course, we have Aaron Cutler from Lakewood sitting right next to a feminine, quote-unquote, rabbi of a Reform synagogue, with a Seder plate that included an orange, which is the symbol of Geyachts, at an interdenominational Seder with the blacks and the Muslims and the Hispanics and Governor Murphy, okay? And this other guy, Duvi Honig, who makes the Chamber of Commerce, and he makes all these business conventions to teach all the Yidlach how to do business. Duvi Honig gave a shout out to the governor in a tweet. I was honored to say Manishtana with the feminist, and for all I know, the lesbian, or certainly lesbian supporting rabbi, and the orange on the table. This was a great Kiddush Hashem. So obviously they don't understand what George Washington said about being aware of entangling alliances. Beware of. So I understand that that some of the main speakers at that event were identified by you as New Age practitioners and believers and proponents of the New Age philosophy, which is anathema, antithetical to some of the basics of Yiddishkeit. So even if you hold, and I do not want to get involved in the anti-vaccine thing or the vaccine thing, because I believe it's come out of Bechin of Elu Ve'elu Divli Kim Chaim. There has to be, it's like the rabbi said to the Rebbetzin, the first claimant is right, the second claimant is right, the Rebbetzin, you're right also. I don't have an answer and I don't want to discuss it, but the New Age aspect, can you, in mamish, in 120 seconds, not more, can you please elaborate on that?
Yes, the New Age movement is a broad movement that, at its core, is intensely anti-Jewish, anti-Semitic from a spiritual perspective, as articulated by Alice A. Bailey in Externalization of the Hierarchy, page 554, that one of the major goals that they espouse is a gradual dissolution, if in any way possible, of the Orthodox Jewish faith, quote unquote. And around that movement occurs, coalesced a whole bunch of people promoting all sorts of holistic, avodah zarah and fear-related therapies and practices and ideas that have become popular in Western society, being promoted falsely as being natural and beneficial and scientific even. And these things they're rooted in fear and avodah zarah, particularly Far Eastern religions, and they bring to that the worldview. And some of the people at this event were actually tangibly connected to that New Age movement and espoused its practices and ideas, including a pediatrician that was there, as well as a lawyer, Mr. Mitchell, Greg Mitchell, who represents the Scientology, New Age Scientology cult, as well as Del Bigtree, who gave a drasha at the end of his long Sermon on the Mount. There he spoke about his shot in Chet Tzadas, unfortunately to the applause of a bunch of really ignorant people. And it felt sort of like the Chet Egel, that he was giving a shot in the Chet Tzadas, which certainly had no bearing to Yiddishkeit. And you had these Haredim that, I don't know if they knew at all what they were clapping to, but it was really quite horrific. It was Chil Hashem. And the fact that you had so many from Yidden listening to these propagandists, thinking that they're actual scientists espousing true science, was really tragic, because they're basically victims of the organizers of this event. They're overall people that are scared about the concerns of vaccine injury, and they were led to believe that the event will be addressed by actual scientists addressing science. I just want to emphasize that the people generally there were mostly victims of this but they should be aware that the event was basically a front for people with a spiritual agenda that is diametrically opposed to ours.
Now, I think you made the point. In other words, let me say it very succinctly. The point is that when you chavazach in an alliance with New Age people, it's first of all, it's giving them chizuk to make more inroads by the Orthodox, to do more things. And second of all, if you can't find anybody else in the anti-vaccine thing, and you've got to come to these people, it's really ochenvei spiritually. Now, I want to play devil's advocate. I want to say as follows. Rabbi Leiter, this actually concludes our interview, which we did for twice as much as we intended. Baruch Hashem, we did for 20 minutes, but Baruch Hashem. But you can listen to this next thing before we disconnect. I want to say this in all honesty. You see, people don't understand. I'm going to be discussing later on this program, Yehuda 11, with its Wildigkeit and the lack of dignity and the shrayachs and the litzonis and the parodies and the songs. It's undignified for a man of 25 or 35 of Ben Torah, and he's twice the age. What is he verkallert? So I want to say, you have to understand, Asay L'chorav. And I had a very unique Rebbe. I had a Rebbe who said, will the lady in the front row please cover her udders? He could have said, ladies, please, everybody should come dressed sneerstic in the Beis HaKnesses besides outside. He could have said it like that, but he didn't. So there's something to it. Okay, now, but that doesn't answer it completely. I want to tell you something. I want to tell you a Meiser Rav. And it could be that the mishpacha of Rabbi Miller, who's not nearly as great as he is, would prefer that we expunge these parts of history, like we tinker with some of the tapes and we erase some of the things, a little bit of revisionism. Because, that's the way it is. They're cringing a little bit. I mean, they're the chashuva people, but, we're not into cringing. We saw the real thing. So let me tell you something. Based on Rav Avigdor Miller offered me, when I spoke to him, he offered me I could bring down the bishop, the auxiliary bishop of the New York Archdiocese, the second in command to Cardinal O'Connor, to give him a Ben Noach Award in front of the Aron Kodesh on Thursday night. His main concern was, Rabbi Levine, you can't take more than 3 minutes. And I bargained them up to either 5 or 8 minutes, okay? And then he started to get tremendous pressure. And at the end, I did it next door in the Young Israel building and et cetera, et cetera. We made the Kiddush Hashem. It's not the point. Let's go weiter. I'll tell you what Rabbi Miller did do. There used to be a paper in New York, which was the sister paper to the conservative Washington Times. It used to be called the Tribune or something. I can't remember the exact name. And they were around for around 10 years. And they were a very conservative paper, spoke out for morality and family values. And who is sponsoring it? Who is paying the cash cow for this paper that was always losing money? The answer is the followers of Reverend Sion Young Moon, the Moonies. The Moonies, they're mamish proselytizers, and there were many Jews in the Moonies. Now get this, put it in your pipe and smoke it, and if you don't like it, tough luck, too bad, this is a fact. Rav Avigdor Miller brought down one of the high-up Moonies at the Thursday night lecture to give him a yasher koyach for what the New York City Tribune was doing to fight against the schmutz of Koch and the gayachs and the abortion and all the other stuff. So you'll ask me a question, Yehuda 11, you're coming and you're speaking about against that you shouldn't ally yourself with New Age things. And here Rabbi Miller Mamish brought down people who are evangelizing Jews. It's a stira. So the answer is, the same answer to why the Hasidim mindlessly clapped their hands when he was giving his Dvar Torah Afro Lepume on the original sin. The reason is, I'll say it like they would say in Wiensberg, mit Kavona. Weil the Gemara steht, im ein das havdula menayin. If you don't have any brains, then how do you know have to be mabdul ben kodesh l'kodesh ben kodesh l'choil and all the disparate things, and that you have to the hair splitting that is required in making mechitzas and avdalas. So the answer is, if you have brains and if you have shimush, you understand. Rav Avigdor Miller had a hirah shah that the morality thing is so bad that the znus hashatam zoinem acharem is so bad that he took Moonies that everybody knows what they were, And everybody knows that everything he stands for is against missionaries because he used to get into fights with missionaries in the streets of Flatbush. So everybody knows this, and he wrote and spoke about this. So he was able to do this. However, when you bring in New Age people who are surreptitious and who are under the radar, you're doing a tremendous amount of damage. If they would have gotten up, Bishas Maisa, and said, listen, we're taking the Chochmah, like Reb Meir said, or whatever, from Acher, and we're eating the fruit and throwing away the Klippa, and we want to make it clear to our guests that we do not subscribe, and it's antithetical, and we are ultimately opposed to your New Age philosophy. However, for health reasons, if you would have made such a disclaimer, ulay ve'efsha. So now I just wanted people to understand that there's no stira in Yehuda Levin's presentation here. You just got to have a little das. Rabbi Leiter, thank you very much for joining with us.
Thank you.
All the rest. Kol tuv. What Rabbi said, we continue. Rabbi said, we continue. Now, it's Sphira, and in Sphira, Rabbi said, in Sphira, of course, you know you're not allowed to listen to music, and basically, you're not allowed to listen to music, but basically there are people who believe in a cappella, that you're allowed to do a cappella. It's a discussion, they are, they aren't. So I don't even know if what I'm doing qualifies as a cappella, but I would like to do this. I would like to share with you a song. I've composed now at least 6 songs. One of them I put on YouTube a number of years ago. It's called Rabbi Levin's Rosh Hashanah song or Rosh Hashanah message, New Year's Rosh Hashanah song, something. It's called Deshanta B'Shem. It's in Lashon HaKodesh from the Mizmor of Deshanta B'Shem Roichi, and it's in English. And it's designed for Jews and for Goyim. Lahavdol. This song is called B'Yadchav Kidruchi. I'd like to sing it for you, and then I'll explain why I'm singing it for you. Besides, I like to hear myself sing, and it calms me down when I get upset after all this chazarai that I have to discuss. What do you think? This is good for my blood pressure? At my age, please. So here goes. B'yadcha avkid ruchi b'yesi shon v'yoira yoy v'yim ruchi Givi Yasi Hashem li v'lo ira Adoin 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 Olam Asher Malach B'terem Kol Yitzir Nivra Yes Naso b'chavetzo kol Azai melech shemo nikra V'acharei kichlais hakol Ha'iliv ado yimloich naira V'hu haya V'hu hayveh, v'hu yiyeh b'sifaron, v'hu yiyeh b'sifaron. Well, Rabbi Sai, an original composition of your humble servant, Levim Lishim Lezimram, Yehuda Halevi Levin. Why am I singing it now? I'll tell you, it's just reached the stage. I'm interested in putting out my 6 Nigunim, not spending thousands of dollars, like the Ego Chevra, and making all kinds of things that are expensive, and of course, who knows how much money. What I want to do, Rabbi Sai, is give me a pause for a second, because every time somebody calls me on my phone, so my WhatsApp goes, and that's a big problem. So I got to get the WhatsApp back on. Okay. So the reason I'm doing this song is because I'm putting this out, because maybe in this wide, disparate audience, I'm looking for somebody. It could be a young man, a young person. It doesn't matter. It could be an older person. It could be somebody in the divas or maybe for a very slight fee. I want the musical arrangement for these 6 songs. So I gave you an example of one of the songs that I was singing a cappella. But if it's done with music, the right arrangement, the right intro, basically, etc., I believe it's much more powerful and it's much more registic. So if anybody could help me in this thing, I have 6 songs. The Shanta is one. You can see it on the internet with somebody accompanying with a guitar. And I'm looking ASAP. I want to put these songs out basically on the internet. I'm not looking to sell tapes or make money or anything like that. I want to share it, like with Lahav Elfi Abdullas. But you know, in Torah, if you have Chedushi Torah, you have to write it down and you have to be faflated, ufaratsta. It's a chiv to do that. And if Hashem did good things to you, you're supposed to say thank you in public. These are chazal. And the same thing you see, if Hashem gives you a shtickle koyach negina, and He gives you songs, He gives you regesh, and you could use it for avodas Hashem. You use your niguna for avodas Hashem. You could share it with people. So I believe it's come time to share it. Please, if somebody could contact me, and welcome to my WhatsApp. My WhatsApp is now on its second chat. That means we filled up to 250 or around 70 or 80 in the second chat that we opened just a few days ago. My number to contact me for the WhatsApp. And you send me a text with your first name and your telephone number, and I will put you on the WhatsApp, and you will gain a lot in entertainment. That's the lowest level of it. You will gain in education. You will be educated and in an entertaining fashion. You will learn the hashkafa. 718-469-6999. You could also contact me by rabbilevin@gmail.com, rabbilevin@gmail.com. And if you have a heter for the internet, which every tweeting Agudist has given us to tweet the Hanifa and the kiss up and all the hype that they're trying to shove down our throats. So kal v'chemer, you have a heter for the internet, you can go to rabbilevin.com. It is not current. It's 5 years since the last time I posted there. However, if you look at the second and third speech on the homepage, you'll have a lot of hana from the dynamism of the speech on religious liberty and the reprise of Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech in front of 100,000 people live, and it was on C-SPAN, played many times for a total of over 1 million people. And you'll have hana, and you'll see what Hashem gave me, talent on loan from God, because of my rebbeim and the kinds of stuff I do. And you'll see many other interesting things on rabbilevin.com. Now, let's go a little weiter. So I want to explain again. I want to make it very clear. There's a very, very choshev younger man. I might speak him this Shabbos. He sits and he learns part of the day. He's gotten so light. He's a fellow in his 30s, and he is absolutely super mature and very, very choshev. And he is among the many people who say, Rabbi Levin, you're embarrassing yourself. You're acting with such a lack of dignity. Whoever heard, does anybody else, any other Rav, anybody, any other rabbi, etc., etc. The first thing is Rabbi Sai. I don't put myself out there as a Paisik. I don't put myself out there as a Talmud Chacham. I don't put myself out there as a Masmid. I don't put myself out there as a Bal Chesed. Who am I? I'm just a simple guy who's only trying to do what's right and follow what my Rebbe said. Because they're no longer here, I gotta be there instead. I'm just following orders. I got my marching orders, okay? To use my kitchen. Now, as far as the dignity, let me explain to you. The reason that I have thousands of listeners, the reason that people all over are passing around my in-your-face videos, sometimes 5 a day. Some of them are gnashing their teeth. Some of them are hating. Some of them are resentful. But the reason I'm using that methodology, it's a marketing tool to get it out. Yes, if we lived in another time, I could be staid and refined. They're heretic, like almost like Trump said. I could be so presidential you won't believe. I could also be so rabbinic you won't believe. And guess what? When it's appropriate, when it's time, I'm speaking in Washington, or I go someplace and speak to a dental audience, hakol if you have bias from bias and what the tachlis is. But let me just leave this subject. I am so comfortable in my skin. And you could ask me in front of 1,000 people, Rabbi Levin, it's a chil Hashem, and it's a disgrace, and it's a this, and it's a that. I went on the steps of City Hall. You hear? And I put on a kittel and I blew shofar and we had candles because we were making like an excommunication ceremony when Rudy Giuliani was passing a certain Gayach's bill. And there's a video of this, which I have. And in the video, which was taken by a friend, you see the media standing and laughing their heads off at us. But you know what happened? Even the austere New York Times had a picture with a Hasidic fellow holding a lit candle. So we got the message out to that vehicle. The New York Post put it on the front page for a half a day. Oy gay. They got it out. Do I care? It's the Sundays and this and that. And people say, oh, Levin, he's embarrasses, etc., etc. Meanwhile, I had asked the Shaila by the esteemed from the Zikne Hador, the Kashavarov, who his son asked him the question because he went to sleep early when I asked the question at 10 or 11 o'clock at night for the next day's press conference on the steps of City Hall. And the son had to ask him for tux, and I got back the answer. Rav Levine TV ihr versteht. That means this Zokin Hadabonim, he felt that I have a siyata d'shmaya in what I'm doing. And the same thing with Rav Avigdor Miller, he was aware of what we're doing. And when I made an excommunication ceremony of Edward I. Koch when he was coming down to Kristen, excuse the Christological reference, to dedicate Bubba Promenade because of the new building in Marcos Katz building. And it was 2 days before the election when I ran against him in 85. And he wanted to show, you see, I come in there and I'll get Kavim Malachim 11 as an outcast. So we organized a excommunication ceremony. I'm a media guy. I know how to get ink even in the Big Apple in New York, which is the hardest thing in the world to get media coverage. And especially to cover a conservative religio fanatic like Yehuda Levin. And I got it without PR firms, without the Askanim, without compromising on principles. So we made an excommunication ceremony. It was in all the papers, and Koch writes about it in his book, okay? I'm not going to discuss the story now, other than to say that you know who sent down their people to this Litzanis and Oive, and it's not this, and we're checking with the Malchus. Let me tell you who sent down people. The people, the Kashavarov sent down, Rav Avigdor Miller sent down, and I don't know, but I think that the Sklerner Rebbe was aware of what we were doing, and he might have even called up the Baba Varov Zitzal to ask him, please, not to give Koch the Kavim Malachim. So on the New York Times front page, they showed a picture of Koch and the Rebbe drinking l'chaim. That was the same Koch who was pushing the Gayas. And on the New York Post and in other papers and on WINS radio, the whole day they were reporting that Rabbi Levin, who was then running for mayor, and other ultra-Orthodox were criticizing the mayor and excommunicating him because it was pro-Gayachs. So who made the Kiddush Hashem? Enough said, Rabbi Say. So now let me give you a biblical riot to what I'm doing. And I've said this before in the radio program, but not everybody hears. We have thousands more listeners now because Zeb Brenner feeds right into my programs, even though he says, this is the end of programming, Jewish programming for Talkline Communication Network. It's like there was a vampire. And the vampire was flying into the ancient castle in the middle of a storm through the open windows in Transylvania. And the good Christian lady sees it and she shrieks. She runs up the winding staircase to her boudoir, which is a French word for bedroom. And she's running, she's panting, and the vampire is flapping his bat wings. Ha, 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 he's going to drink her blood. And then finally she reaches her bedroom, and she, with a last gasping effort, she pulls open her drawer and she brandishes a golden crucifix, which is supposed to ward off the evil of the vampire. And the vampire says to her, Madam, Tzevetach go nicht helfen. You understand? Tzevetach go nicht helfen. Your criticisms, your complaints, etc. Let me just give you a biblical situation here. It was David HaMelech took off most of his clothing. Maybe he was just dressed in a breechcloth, and he was dancing with utter abandon in front of the Aron Kodesh as they would bring it into Yerushalayim. And Michal Bas Shaul, the daughter of King Shaul, who was his wife, was absolutely horrified and shocked. She said, "You're a prince in Israel and everything else. How do you act without dignity?" And he answered her basically, "Madam," some people say she didn't have a kid until the day she died because of that. He answered her, "Madam, Like, don't tell me what to do when it comes to God's dignity. David, did you have to do it this way? This was the only way you could subjugate yourself to God's dignity is by dancing with utter abandon, taking off most of your clothing and dancing and cavorting around like one of the pechusim, like one of the manservants, really? The answer is yes. So stop hacking me a cup. I'm not trying to win your approbation, I should say. I'm not trying to win it for my methodology. If you out there have a better way of getting across the message, you do it. And let me say something else. My job with Mrs. Sash, the formerly that I used to call a Flatbush Mama, but for a while I'm not, and I'll explain to you why. My job was not to be Mekarafa. I leave that to the Lubavitches and the do-goody-goody two-shoes. My job wasn't even to be mochiach her, to give her tochacha, chastisement, which is a daraisa. My job was a third level. It was to make a mocha, to make a havdalah, to say that what she's doing is muksa machmas miyas. No, I promise as a yid, I don't hate her. I hate the things she was doing. I loathe. It's abominable. And that's it. And if the rabbis and rebbitzins and mashpiyim and rebbes would have been doing what they're supposed to, I wouldn't have had to do this. So that's it. Now we're trying a new approach with her. I made several very interesting videos. We even sang songs for her. I'll sing you the song that I sang on the video because the video is only seen by maybe a few hundred or 1,000 people or whatever it is. But this is thousands of people listening. So let me sing you the song I sang for her. Okay? With the utmost respect. First of all, Chaim. I made the bracha before the show started. Chaim Teumel Shon to all we should know all the simchas. I heard from Shlomo Samuels yesterday in the pizza shop, formerly of Samuel's restaurant. I call him the roof for roof because he used to be in roofing, and he told me a beautiful word from the Reb Moshe Hager, the Wisnitzer. You winched on his chassid, you should have many small simchas. So the chassid was shocked. What do you mean small simchas? I want to have big simchas. So the Rebbe said, sit down, I'll explain to you. He said, when a person gets married and they're young, it's a small simcha because you're supposed to get married when they're young. When they're 45 and they get married, it's a big simcha. When a person has children a year or two after marriage, it's a small simcha. When they have it after 20 years, it's a big simcha. He says, I'm wishing you should make many small simchas. It should go drink. You understand? Beautiful vote from the Vishnitzer. Now, I want to talk about Rabbi Handler. Rabbi Handler made, so I was going to sing you the song. That I sang yesterday for Mrs. Miles and her husband with apologist Shlomo Kalbach. I think Shlomo Kalbach would agree, so I don't have to apologize. I think he would agree exactly with how I'm using his song. Oyes nahari me'ofer kumi Livshi big day sifatechami I know you're feeling down. You're in the upper. You are in the dust. You feel so broken with only 400 votes. Oh, how terribly you lost. Put on your princess clothing. Livashet chavot fatecha. Dress like a good Jewish mother and like a good Jewish wife. And you can turn it all around. You could go very high from being low in the ground. Hashem has an open door for your tshuva. You can still become an isha chashuva. Didn't take me long to do this. You see, I do this spontaneously. And that's another lesson to the wannabes and even to Flatbush Mama. When I was her age, I had already run for mayor, gotten the headlines in the paper, and run for Congress and made Soros change his vote on schmutz and everything else and become a right-winger and pump money into the community. It's a big thing. So Hashem get talents. So what? It's talents alone from God. And therefore, if you misuse it and abuse it, you're worse off than a person who doesn't have the talents. That's the idea. And I want to share these things. So for the next little while, I'm going to be giving her shout outs and begging her and her husband to come back to the fold to do tshuva. She could become a very big mashpia. She could become like Mrs. Simi Hadar, I think her name is. Rabbi Maimon Elbaz's daughter, who I understand is very popular with the young ladies. I understand, I don't know, and I'm not giving her a hechsher. I understand she does things in a kosher way, and she inspires girls. Mrs. Sash could do the same thing. She's still young. She is a third of a century, but the next 2/3 of a century, she could make up and she could rise. Rebbetzin Young Rice sat in the same box seat with President Bush when he was running for re-election at the convention. You understand what a Jewish woman can do today? And she did it basically. I don't agree 100% with her speaking to mixed crowds, but who am I? It was accepted by a lot of the tzibur, and nobody can question that she was makav a lot of people. She did good things. So the door's open for Mrs. Mishas if she wants to use it. If not, I heard a rumor that she's going to sue people. Oh, let me say this. Please, I beg you, sue me. First of all, I don't have a penny, so I'm sue-proof. Second of all, the standards of claiming libel, etc., are very, very high. Everything I said about her was said as parody, and it was true. And I promise you, I'm not one drop scared. Halavai, she should sue me, because then it'll get, if it's not thrown out of court, it'll get much bigger attention. And I would love to depose her and question her and her family and bring in witnesses and everything else about how she's making a mockery out of the religion. Boy, she wouldn't know what she's. I just love this stuff. I would do it pro se if allowed. I'd be my own attorney. Oh, halavai. But I'm not looking to chapel with them. I'm looking for her to return. I'm looking for her to do tshuva. I'm looking for her to do tshuva. That's what I'm looking for. Rabbi Sai, so basically, Rabbi Sai, there's another news item that I posted on my chat. There's an Arab woman, a Muslim woman, she's speaking in front of an audience. She's explaining in a very sophisticated way. She doesn't use, we want Sharia law, we want to force all the infidels. She's not talking like a kanoi, talking very genteel. She said, part of being a Muslim is that we want, not only do we want to be free in America to keep our own Arab laws and customs, but Allah wants, and the Prophet Muhammad, want that we should persuade everybody else. In other words, they, like the Christians, are into evangelizing. She's saying it. But the point that I want to make is like this. Of course, we're in Golis, etc., etc. So she wants to push Sharia law and Muslimism and etc., etc. The reason I'm showing it is, why is this happening? Here's where I could do more hashkafa with my brain tied behind my back than all the Aguda hashkafistas who are busy with their askanim, their askanim, going to Farrah Lewis and not even sitting with her and saying the things, listen, you need us now. We're happy, but we're worried about transgender bathrooms. We're worried about this equality law on a federal level. We're worried about it in the city level also. Can you commit to do X, Y, Z on morality? They could have given the opportunity. She needs us to show them, but they didn't do it. And I'm sorry to say, again, it's like spilling this cup. I'm not threatening them. I'm not cursing them. But it's going to be a seed and litness adin. There's a cause and effect. You don't speak out. The Moetzes Gedolei Torah agrees with this. The Aguda doesn't speak out. The Moetzes doesn't speak out. I'm giving a shout out. I said this in a video yesterday, but I want to say it that thousands of people should hear it. The lowlife Kalish, who just put out a picture, there was a tweet of him with a woman with, of course, her chest, a big thing, keep abortion safe and legal, etc., etc. She's standing so close to Kalish, it's like she's glued to his body. Cloud is standing there as preachers like that, so close. But worse than that, he's smiling, everything else, and she tweets, thank you, sir, for your support of Roe versus Wade, etc., etc. He's an oisof, low-life, garbage Russian Marusha who fraternizes and smiles with a sister who married a guy without any conversion or anything like that. You understand? I'm not trying to barret him, but he's proud of it. He puts out these pictures and he says how he speaks to her every day, and he did joint press conferences with her. So if he's not embarrassed, I want to show you him ain't das havdalah minayin. There are people who sat shiva on things like this, and this is what this great Bentera, who learns Daf Yomi at 5 o'clock in the morning, and he's a chazan in the shul. He's a rabbi with smicha, and the halfwits in Chicago continue to laud him and give him covet, even as he's voting pro-gay. He voted to institute a gay curriculum, a mishkav zacha curriculum, in every single class, in every single grade throughout the schools in Illinois, from kindergarten through 12th grade. But it's not in yeshivas. So therefore, all the Jewish people who go there and all the goyim who are mechuyev in Sheva Mitzvahs Neinayach, and that they're becoming mekulkal because of Kalish, your shliach tzibur, Aguda's Frankenstein monster, I call upon the Novominsker Rebbe and the Moyetzes Gedolei HaTorah to condemn him. And and I say this with love and respect, Rebbe Novominsker Rebbe, he put out your name on an email that you're his Das Torah. And then he suddenly came out next time and he told Shlomo Winter that his Das Torah said Gam Zeh Yavor, and he doesn't have to apologize or retract. So he went further. If you're responsible for this, if you're not responsible for this, why aren't Agudas Yisrael condemning? He's going to do more and more damage. People are going to get cancer because of him. Babies are going to die because of him. Because if we turn the other cheek to abortion with our shliach tzibur, I don't want to say Afro Lapum, it's a curse to him that he should eat dirt. But Mamish is a shreklicha Russian Marusha. He's worse than a Shainu Porishnik. He's Mechaven Limroid in Torah's Moshe Rabbeinu and Aleph Beis. And where's Agudas Yisrael? Where are the Moyetzes? Where are they? Shame. And I'm going to continue to say it. But Makom Sheish Chilul Hashem Ein Cholken Kavod L'Rav. Baruch Hashem, I got that off my chest, and I shouldn't be nitfaced in the oven and be the shasik oidi. Now, Rabbi Handler made a mistake, and he said that de Blasio, he called him Amalek, he spoke about his German heritage. You understand? Now, that was terrible. Why? Because it's Malchus. Now, tell me something. What was the concept of the Germans? The concept of the Germans was that it's acceptable, even in Gentile society, to say they're paying reparations because the German folk, the German Ummah as a whole, was killing people, millions of people, not only Jews. They killed gypsies, they killed undesirables, they killed Poles, they killed all kinds of people, right? So we associate Germany still because within the last century, they killed many millions of people. And we consider it a national disgrace for them. And many of the Talmud Shavums of Germany come to Eretz Yisrael. They beg mechila, and they go to Holocaust museums, and they go to rabbis and do penance. And they go to kibbutzim. You understand? So therefore, Rabbi Handler said something. He shouldn't have said Amalek, but he spoke about the German. Tell me something. De Blasio was one of the biggest pro-aborts in the country. He worked with the city council to disallow women from going to the Christian crisis pregnancy centers if they don't put up a sign that says, we don't have a doctor, we don't perform abortions, which will turn them away, so they'll never have a chance to do the pregnancy test, and they'll never have a chance to discover that the sonograms and to save the lives of their babies, which is a Noahide imperative. So that's what this Ritzayach is doing, de Blasio, this Menuvel Ritzayach. And there is an anti-human tendency in him, and maybe it's because he's from the Ummah of Germany. Ooh, I said it. Oh. So if Aguda would at least criticize de Blasio and go to him about what he's doing on abortion, what he's doing on same-gender bathrooms, all the garbage that he's doing, anechtige tog, not a word, not a statement, nothing. But to smack around Handler, to toady and curry favor with de Blasio, they're the big cleaner-uppers of Chil Hashem. But their own Kelish Chil Hashem, they don't clean up. Shame on those hypocrites. Can you smell the stench all over Brooklyn? I smell it to stinkt von zeh. Okay? Not only Kalish, not only de Blasio, none of the politicians, zero. They don't do a thing. They don't even control that pipsqueak Eichenstein who's voted for Gayach's bills. Nothing, not Felder, nothing on them. Yeah, but they had to bash Rabbi Handler. Rabbi Handler, who's basically stood up for morality for over 40 years, who's been a spokesman in the past for years for Satmar in a very dignified, respectful manner at their rallies and to the media. So he slipped up. He shouldn't have said Amalek and he shouldn't have said German. Sure, I'm sure he would agree, mea culpa now in a calmer moment. But there's such a double standard garbage. It's disgraceful, disgusting. Now, so I want to tell you, Rabbi Sai, that I was the rabbi of a shul, Kehilas Mavakshi Hashem. It's now occupied by Rabbi Ashkenazi, who had a fire. So for the last few years, I am a quote rabbi, call it spiritual leader at a Flatbush minyan, a Kalbach minyan that takes place in a private residence each and every Friday night. Tonight, this week, at around, it's going to start, we're going to try to do mincha at 7:20. And everybody is invited. And at around 7:30 or 7:35, we're going to do Kabbalah Shabbos. Okay? And time permitting, at some point, I might say a brief Dvar Torah, and after Ma'ariv, I will be available at that residence if people want to schmooze. Before the Suda, it's late, it's at Gesundheit. Okay? And maybe even later in the evening, you can come back to that residence at something like 10:30 and dessert and Nagunim and Divrei Torah and excellent conversation. So I want to invite people who want a Lebedika exalted, invigorating, inspiring Kabbalah Shabbos, and they want to meet and greet and talk a little Divrei Torah, a little Divrei politics, Hashkafa. The minyan is at 977, I think it is, East 17th Street, 977. If I'm mistaken, it's 970. It's either 977 or 970. You'll clearly see it. When you're walking down the block from J to I, it's on your right-hand side in the middle of the block. It's not a multi-level structure. It's basically a few steps up and one floor. I think it's 977 East 17th Street. Okay, I look forward to seeing you again. If we don't have a minyan for Mincha for some reason at 7:20, we might go straight into Kabbalah Shabbos, and the Kabbalah Shabbos takes around 35 minutes or so. Then we do Ma'ariv for another 10, 15 minutes. We do a little dancing, and we have a little Dvar Torah, if possible. And you're welcome to join me. 977 East 17th Street. Try it, Tamur Uki Toiv. Try it, you'll like it, you'll enjoy it. Mirza Hashem. Now, Rabbi Sa, let's see what else. Okay, so I have to do checks here. We're running out of time. I have to do checks. We spoke about the Flatbush Minyan. We spoke about the lawsuit. I'm begging her to do the lawsuit. We're talking about the talents on loan from God. You don't get big credit. And if Hashem, you realize Hashem gave you talents, you got to use it. Why do you give me a sense of humor? Why do you give me parody? Why do you give me to sing? Why do you give me that I can make up songs spontaneously? I'm trying to explain to you. You people are my therapists. Okay? And thank you. Okay? I spoke to you about the fact now that we have a new approach with Mrs. Miles. I spoke to you about why there's an Arab woman and why I put that on my thing. The Arab woman is to teach us if they can do for theirs, we can do for ours. I spoke to you about dignity. I spoke to you about handler and kelis and the Hypocricy of Aguda. Now, what else? Oh, very important. I'm looking for an arranger of my music. I spoke to you about that. Now, I want to tell you two more things. Alabama, Georgia, and now Missouri are having very strict anti-abortion. After all these years of Roe versus Wade, things are reversing themselves. Even in this late stage of the culture, there's a big ruach of anti-abortion. But not for the Fruma. No way. That's why they don't say anything to Kalis. They don't say anything to de Blasio. They don't say anything to Cuomo. They don't even say anything to Pipsqueak Eichenstein, the Zidder disgrace, why he didn't speak out and describe the horrific thing of leaving a baby to Bach wasn't. Let's give some Eichenstein a big hand. Yay, he voted the right way. I'm bowing down in front of the screen. Oh, I'm genuflecting. Oh, thank you, Zidder Sion of Zidder Sion, Scion. That means that from the pedigree of Zidder. Yeah, the Rebbes are very proud of you. Yes. Because you couldn't even talk out. And you give this asinine answer. The talking out, That's for the Rabunim. No, that's for you in the legislature to persuade your fellow legislators like they do in the Congress, like we see on the videos. The doctors get up and they describe the horrific aspect of tearing a baby limb from limb. You're going to, shame on you, Eichenstein and Felder and all the rest of you jokers. Rabbi Sai, I am looking to start to say a shir once a week in a private house or in the basement of a shul. It could be just for women, or it could be open. Excuse me. Boy, oh boy, we're having a problem here with my having a problem with the WhatsApp. You'll have to bear with me. Final moments of the program. I'm looking to start saying a shir in Machshava and in Hashkafa. It could be in a woman's house with for women and for men. We could have a mechisa. We could do whatever we want. It could be something that could be used as singles, for singles meeting place. It could be in the basement of a shul. But whoever is interested and likes my style and my divrei Torah, okay, I'm looking to do this. And please contact me at 718-469-6999 in Borough Park of Flatbush. I'm looking to start a weekly cheer on one evening, like a Thursday night or a Sunday night or whatever, you know, for a shir for around 45 minutes to an hour, question and answers. It could be used as a social for singles as well, or it could just be for women. It could be for women and men, however it is. I've done this in the past, and I'm looking to do it again. There's no charge. If anybody's interested, 718-469-6999. The voice site, this is Yehud 11. And until we meet again, please remember this stuff is on YouTube. It's archived at 11 at 11. Become a shutta, become a partner by publicizing this radio program that's listened to already by thousands, by getting onto the WhatsApp, 718-469-6999. Text me your name and number, and we'll be happy to put you on the WhatsApp chat. So you'll get everyday updates. But more than that, I'm looking to go onto Instagram or Telegram or some of these other things. As soon as I find out somebody, we shouldn't be limited to 250 people on a chat. It's small potatoes. We want to put it out there and start getting tweets and schmeets and whatever it is on a much bigger level. And I'm looking for somebody who in Flatbush who can come over and spend a little time with me, teaching me how to do this on my iPhone 6 Plus so that we can get the word out to many other people. So thank you very much for listening. And I want to just tell you, I have a beautiful, beautiful 2 shiurim that each one's around an hour and a half in duration. It's from the best shiurim I've ever said in 40 years. It's called Lag Ba'ima and the Power of Women. And you can find it by going to Kol HaLashon, dialing 718-906-6400, pressing 1 for English, 3 for the category, and 33 for my shiurim. And then you go to either shir, it's somewhere between 79, 80, or 81. You'll hear a shir on Lag Ba'ima, Women Shidduchim, Yvet Lecken, the Finger, and Kvellen. That's my advice to you. Until next week, have a guten Tamid. Kol Tuv.